Timelessly and majestically, the mighty rocks of the Mesa Verde National Park rise up into the sky. Unlike most of the other nature parks in the USA, here it is not only the natural landscape that is protected, but also the remains of an early Native American Indian culture. The splendor of the Mesa Verde, or green table, is well described by its name. The seemingly endless landscape reveals a broad and idyllic plain. Park Point is the highest vantage point, 2,613 meters above sea level. If a forest fire breaks out, it can be well seen from here. The plateau is rich with forest and game. Man has come to this region for centuries. The oldest archaeological discoveries date back around 12,000 years. The first Indian settlers were probably hunters. Agriculture and farming began much later. In about 600 AD, larger communities began to develop. The time of the Anasazi Indian had begun. Despite the rocks, the terrain of the Mesa Verde is quite fertile, and for several centuries the climate has been good to the Anasazi Indians. On some days, the view from the highest vantage points extends for 100 kilometers and takes in 4 states. The green table has retained its indigenous animals and plants to the present day. Spruce Tree House, an Indian cliff dwelling, once inhabited by the ancient Anasazi Tribe, was discovered by white settlers in the 19th century. Most of the Indians' almost inaccessible settlements lie hidden close to the rock walls and even beneath them. Only the sharpest eye could spot the beautiful cliff dwellings of the Anasazi that made their eventual discovery by white settlers quite an achievement. Along the picturesque Navajo Canyon are several historically important Indian dwellings that date back to the 10th and 13th centuries. Nearly invisible paths and climbing routes known as canyon barriers were used to connect the various Indian communities. By using the paths that led through the rock walls, it was possible to exchange news and gossip. Some buildings served as communal meeting centers. But the small paths and climbing routes of the Anasazi, even after their discovery by white settlers, are still quite treacherous for the inexperienced. Owing to their inaccessibility, the cliff dwellings in the canyons remained undiscovered for many years. Thus, the lost culture of the Anasazi has been extremely well preserved, and their buildings are still warmed by the sunlight. The harmonious relationship between the early inhabitants of these canyons and nature can still be relived at these marvelous and fascinating sites. Square Tower House was most likely built between 1200 and 1300 AD, and thus flourished in the latter part of Anasazi culture. With around 80 rooms and 7 ceremonial gathering places known as Kivas, this cliff dwelling was one of the larger communes in this region. The architecture, and particularly the masonry of these buildings, show the advanced technical ability of this Indian culture. Each evening, the canyons in the Mesa Verde perform a captivating natural spectacle as the rocks of the Anasazi are covered by the golden glow of the setting sun. Both North American Indian cultural history and nature are forever united in this fascinating national park.